Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim.
Every year, as the month of Dhul Hijjah arrives and the pilgrims stand on the plain of Arafat, millions of Muslims around the world prepare for an act that is simultaneously ancient and immediate, the sacrifice of an animal on Eid al-Adha. To the believer, it is an act of worship, a symbol of submission, and a renewal of the covenant with Allah. It connects them, across 14 centuries, to one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the human relationship with God. But too many outside the faith, and honestly, even to some within it, question arises: why the blood? Why the animal? If the goal is to help the poor, isn't donating money more efficient? Isn't slaughtering an animal in the 21st century unnecessarily cruel? And why does Islam seem to be the only religion whose ritual slaughter attracts this level of criticism? Today, we answer every one of these questions, directly, thoroughly, and honestly. We will walk through the origin story, the deep spiritual psychology of sacrifice, the legitimate concerns about animal welfare, and the media dynamics that surround the practice. This is not merely a defense of Qurbani, it is an honest, thorough exploration of what sacrifice truly means in the Islamic tradition, its origin, its spiritual psychology, its legal standing, and its answers to the most pressing objections of the modern age. To understand Qurbani, we must understand its origin, a story that has echoed through millennia and that stands as one of the most profound narratives of faith in the entire religious history of humanity. Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, is known in Islamic tradition as the father of monotheism, and was bestowed the title of Khalilullah, which is known as the friend of Allah. His life was a sustained series of trials, each one more demanding than the last. He was thrown into a fire for refusing to worship idols, and the fire became cool around him by divine command. He left his wife Hajra and their infant son Ismail in a barren, waterless valley at the command of Allah, with nothing but his trust in the one who had commanded it. He endured exile, poverty, and the enmity of those he loved. He had spent decades of his life praying for a child, and after years of waiting, Allah had given him a son. And then came the greatest test. One night, Ibrahim saw a vision. In his dream, he was commanded to sacrifice his beloved son Ismail. The dreams of prophets are not ordinary dreams, they are a form of divine revelation, true and binding. Ibrahim understood immediately what had been asked of him. What he did next reveals the character of the man whom Allah had chosen as his close friend. He did not conceal the command from his son, nor did he trick him or bring him to the place of sacrifice under a false pretext. He went to the boy and laid the truth before him with the tenderness and honesty of a father who loved his son completely, and the transparency of a believer who had nothing to hide from Allah. The Quran, in Surah As-Safat, verse 102, records the exchange, and when he reached with him the age of exertion, he said, "O my son, I see in a dream that I am sacrificing you. So tell me what you think." Ismail's reply in Surah As-Safat, verse 102, is one of the most remarkable statements of faith in all of religious literature, ancient or modern. "O my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, among the steadfast." Sit with this for a moment. A boy, the narrations suggest he was around 13 years of age, hears from his father that he must kill him, on the command of God. And his response is complete, willing, conscious submission. No protests, no tears of accusation, no flight, no bargaining, just, "Do it, I am with you, Allah wills it." This is not the response of a victim resigned to fate, this is the response of a soul so deeply rooted in its relationship with Allah that even death, offered by the hand of the one who loves you most, is accepted with composure and faith. Ismail chose this. He walked to that sacrifice with his eyes open and his heart at rest. Two prophets, one command, complete submission, This is the essence of Islam, embodied in two human beings at the most extreme possible moment. As they made their way toward the place of sacrifice, believed to be in Mina, near Makkah, Shaitan, the devil, appeared and tried desperately to turn them back. Ibn Abbas narrated in Musnad Ahmad that Jibril guided Ibrahim to Jamrat al-Aqaba, where Shaitan appeared before him, and Ibrahim stoned him with 7 pebbles until he disappeared. Shaitan appeared again at Al-Jamra al-Wasta, and was stoned again. In other narrations, Shaitan appeared separately to Ibrahim, to Hajra, and to Ismail, trying each time to convince them that they were about to commit a monstrous act. Each time, he was rejected and driven away with stones. This act of rejection is precisely what pilgrims relive today when they throw pebbles at the Jamarat during Hajj. Ibrahim took his son to the place of sacrifice. He laid Ismail face downward. The scholars explain this was out of mercy and respect, so that Ibrahim would not have to look into his son's eyes in that moment. He raised the knife, he drew it across his son's throat with the full strength of his obedience. But the knife did not cut. Allah had decreed that the blade would not function. The command was never truly about killing Ismail, the test was about willingness, about whether Ibrahim's love for Allah superseded even his love for his son, and whether Ismail's submission to Allah superseded even his attachment to his own life. Both had passed. Both had proven, in the most complete way imaginable, that nothing stood between them and their Lord. The Quran records the divine response, in Surah As-Safat, verses 103 to 107, so when they had both submitted, and he had laid him down on his forehead, we called out to him, O Ibrahim, you have fulfilled the vision. Indeed, we thus reward the doers of good. That was indeed a clear trial. And we ransomed him with a great sacrifice. A ram was sent from paradise to be sacrificed in Ismail's place. Ibrahim sacrificed the ram, the blood flowed as a substitution for the blood of his son. And then Allah declared, in Surah As-Safat, verse 109, Peace be upon Ibrahim. This event, the willingness, the submission, the divine substitution, the peace, is what Muslims worldwide commemorate every year on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. Every animal that is sacrificed on Eid al-Adha is an echo of that ancient moment. Every family that gathers around that sacrifice is renewing, in their own way, the commitment that Ibrahim and Ismail demonstrated on that day. A question that sits beneath everything is, why sacrifice at all? If the relationship between the believer and Allah is one of love, gratitude, and prayer, why does it require blood? Why does faith need to be expressed through the physical death of an animal? Sacrifice is not unique to Islam. Every major religious tradition in human history has included some form of it. The Hebrew Bible is saturated with the detailed rules of animal sacrifice. Hindu traditions include ritual slaughter in certain contexts. Traditional and indigenous religions across every continent have practiced sacrifice as a form of communication with the divine. Something in the structure of human religious consciousness has, across all cultures and ages, understood that the giving up of something valuable, the offering of life itself, expresses a devotion that words alone cannot. Islam did not invent this instinct, it purified it. It removed from it the superstition, the appeasement of capricious deities, the idea that the divine needs to be fed or bribed. And it gave the act a meaning rooted in the most fundamental truth about the human relationship with God. Everything you have is from Allah, everything belongs to Allah, and the willing return of even a portion of it is the most honest acknowledgement of that truth that a human being can make. The Arabic word Qurban derives from the root qariba, meaning to draw near or to approach. An animal sacrifice is called a Qurban because it is a means of drawing closer to Allah. The physical act is the outer form, the inner essence is proximity to God. What the believer is offering, ultimately, is not an animal. It is the movement of the heart toward its creator. In the classical spiritual tradition of Islam, the Quran's statement, in Surah Al-Hajj, verse 37, that neither the meat nor the blood reaches Allah is understood as the key to the whole practice. Allah does not need the animal. What He receives, the only thing that genuinely travels from the act of Qurbani upward to the divine, is taqwa, God consciousness, sincerity, piety. The greatest idol in any human life is the ego. The nafs demands to be served, to be validated, to be first, to be praised, to be right. It is the internal pharaoh that every believer carries. Qurbani calls the believer to confront this internal tyranny and to take the knife to it. Can you sacrifice the need to be right, to apologize without immediately justifying yourself? Can you sacrifice the desire for public praise, to do good deeds quietly, without the performance? Can you sacrifice your anger, to hold your tongue in the moment when every impulse demands that you speak? These are the inner sacrifices that the outer sacrifice of Qurbani is meant to initiate and sustain. We love our money. We love what it provides: security, comfort, options, status. The love of wealth is one of the most consistently addressed subjects in the Quran. And Qurbani asks the believer to spend a significant sum on an animal that will be slaughtered and distributed, not for profit, not for investment, not for social capital, but purely for Allah. This is not a tax, though it has a threshold that parallels the thresholds of zakat. It is an act of worship that severs, annually and deliberately, the attachment of the heart to material things. The money leaves, the attachment, ideally, goes with it. The scholars of Islam have articulated a principle that the Ibrahim story makes vivid: faith is not a feeling, it is a commitment. And commitments are proven not when they are easy but when they cost something. Sacrifice is the visible, tangible, and irreversible proof of submission. It demonstrates, to oneself, to the community, and in an act of symbolic testimony to Allah, that the believer understands their wealth, their livestock, their time, and their life as belonging to the one who gave them, and that they are willing to return a portion of it when commanded. Now let's look into the question, is donating money to the poor better than sacrificing an animal? This question arises frequently, particularly among younger Muslims and among those who approach the matter from a humanitarian perspective. The reasoning is intuitive. The declared purpose of distributing the Qurbani meat is to feed those who cannot afford it. If the goal is to feed the poor, wouldn't the money spent on an animal, distributed directly as cash, do more good? Wouldn't it give the recipient more flexibility, reach more people, be more efficient? The question is sincere. It deserves a complete and honest answer. The premise of the question contains an important misunderstanding. It treats Qurbani as if its primary category is charity. It is not. Qurbani is an act of worship, a specific, divinely ordained ritual that was prescribed as a reenactment of Ibrahim's sacrifice and whose form, timing, and manner are all part of the divine command. The Quran says, in Surah Al-Kawthar, verse 2, "So pray to your Lord and sacrifice." The command pairs prayer and sacrifice as two acts of worship. Just as prayer cannot be replaced by a donation to the poor, even though charity is excellent and rewarded, Qurbani cannot be replaced by a financial transfer. The form is part of the command. The selection of the animal, the slaughter at the specified time, the days of sacrifice, the distribution of the meat in 3 portions, all of this is the worship itself, not merely the vehicle for delivering charity. You cannot substitute one act of worship for another any more than you can substitute Ramadan fasting for Hajj on the grounds that both bring you closer to Allah. The question of which is more efficient does not apply to ibadah. Efficiency is a criterion for logistics. The criterion for worship is obedience. According to the Hanafi school of jurisprudence, the school followed by the largest single portion of the Muslim world, Qurbani is wajib, obligatory upon every adult, sane Muslim who possesses wealth equal to or exceeding the nisab threshold during the days of Eid al-Adha and who is not currently traveling. The Maliki, Shafi'i, and Hanbali schools consider Qurbani a sunnah muakkada, a confirmed sunnah so strongly established that abandoning it without excuse is blameworthy, and some within these schools who hold it to be obligatory for the community. In either case, for the Hanafi Muslim who meets the financial threshold, donating money instead of sacrificing does not fulfill the obligation. The charity is praiseworthy, it is rewarded as sadaqah, but the specific mandatory act of worship remains undone. This is the critical clarification: if you are financially eligible for Qurbani, you are required to sacrifice. Donating money to the poor instead is not a substitute, it is an addition. Beyond the theological category, Qurbani provides benefits that a cash donation cannot replicate. It revives the sunnah of both Ibrahim, peace be upon him, and the Prophet Muhammad, who never once missed performing Qurbani after it was prescribed. The continuity of this communal act across the global Muslim community is itself a preservation of an Islamic symbol of immense historical and theological weight. If the entire Ummah were to replace Qurbani with cash donations, one of the most visible and distinctive symbols of the faith would disappear from the earth. It supports entire chains of economic livelihood: farmers, herders, livestock traders, butchers, tanners, in communities where these are primary sources of income, particularly in the developing world. It provides meat, a high-quality protein, not a commodity but a genuine nutritional luxury, to the poor in communities where Eid al-Adha is the only occasion in the year when they eat meat at all. The value of this cannot be measured in monetary equivalence. It has a cultural and nutritional significance that money sent to a general fund does not. It creates a shared, communal, physical event, families gathering, neighbors coming together, the poor receiving from the hands of those around them, that builds bonds of community and embodies the Islamic principle of collective responsibility in a way that a digital bank transfer cannot. The scholar's position is unambiguous: if you have the means, you sacrifice. If you wish to donate money to the poor in addition, that is an excellent and separately rewarded act of charity. The one does not replace the other. No honest discussion of Qurbani is complete without confronting the objections raised in the name of animal welfare. Every year around Eid al-Adha, images and descriptions of animal slaughter circulate through media and social platforms, accompanied by words like barbaric, cruel, and backward. These concerns deserve neither dismissal nor evasion. They deserve examination. Let it first be said clearly, Islam does not permit cruelty to animals. The Prophet Muhammad demonstrated a profound and documented concern for animal welfare throughout his life. He cursed those who mistreated animals and praised those who showed them kindness. He prohibited the practice of cutting off the ears or marking the faces of livestock. He said, "The worst of shepherds is the ungentle, who causes the beasts to crush or bruise one another." With respect to the slaughter itself, the rules of Islamic practice were designed to minimize suffering. The Prophet said, "Verily Allah has enjoined goodness to everything, so when you kill, kill in a good way, and when you slaughter, slaughter in a good way. Let each of you sharpen his blade and let the slaughtered animal die comfortably." He instructed that the knife be sharpened before the animal is brought forward, not in its presence. He instructed that the animal should not see other animals being slaughtered, and should not see the knife before the moment of the cut. He prohibited moving from one animal to another without first cleaning the blade. The slaughter itself, a single, deep, swift incision severing the windpipe, esophagus, and both carotid arteries with a sharp knife, is designed to bring about rapid loss of consciousness and swift death. The Prophet even rebuked a man who was sharpening his knife after the animal had already been laid down, saying, do you want to kill it twice? You should have sharpened your blade before laying it down. The principle running through all of these instructions is ihsan, excellence and compassion, applied not only to dealings with other people, but to every created being, including the animal about to be slaughtered. Here is the question that the animal welfare critique of Qurbani must answer. Where is the outrage about industrial factory farming? Every single day, in facilities around the world, billions of animals are subjected to conditions that Islamic slaughter law explicitly prohibits. They are confined in cages so small they cannot turn around. They are transported for hours in extreme heat or cold without food or water. They are subjected to stunning methods, electric shocks, gas chambers, that are often imperfectly applied, leaving animals in pain while fully conscious. They are slaughtered on assembly lines by workers under relentless pressure to meet production quotas, with no moment of acknowledgement that a life is being taken and no name invoked over the act. The global industrial meat system kills billions of animals per year in conditions of sustained cruelty that dwarf any reasonable comparison to Islamic ritual slaughter. And it does so invisibly, behind closed doors, in facilities that the public is not invited to witness, in a supply chain carefully designed to prevent the consumer from thinking about what happened to the meat on their plate. Qurbani is different in one crucial respect: it is visible. It happens in backyards, in open fields, in community spaces. The blood is seen, the death is witnessed. For a society that has grown entirely comfortable with industrial-scale animal killing precisely because it is hidden, this visibility is shocking. But the shock is not evidence that Qurbani is cruel. It is evidence that modern society has become profoundly disconnected from the reality of where meat comes from. The person who weeps at a Qurbani video while consuming a product from a factory farm is not expressing a superior moral position. They are expressing the cognitive dissonance of a culture that has externalized its own violence and then reacted with horror when someone else's is made visible. Animal sacrifice is not unique to Islam. This is a factual point that the discussion almost never acknowledges. In Jewish tradition, the Kapparot ritual, practiced by certain communities before Yom Kippur, involves swinging a live chicken over one's head before slaughtering it as an atonement for sins. This ritual receives a fraction of the media attention directed at Qurbani. In Hindu tradition, animal sacrifice, Bali, is practiced in certain temples and during certain festivals, particularly those associated with specific deities. Goats, chickens, and in some cases buffaloes are sacrificed publicly, sometimes in very large numbers. The global media coverage of this is negligible compared to the coverage of Eid al-Adha. In Afro-Caribbean traditions, Santeria, Candomblé, and others, animal sacrifice is a practiced and legally protected religious act. The United States Supreme Court, in Church of Lukumi Bablu IV City of Haile, 1993, explicitly upheld the constitutional right to ritual animal sacrifice for religious purposes. These practices receive almost no mainstream scrutiny. In Christian theology, the entire redemptive framework is built on the concept of the sacrificial lamb, Jesus Christ as the blood sacrifice whose death atones for the sins of humanity. The theological centrality of sacrifice and blood in Christianity is absolute, even if the physical practice has ceased. If the concern about Qurbani were genuinely rooted in a principled position about animal welfare, it would be applied consistently across all religious traditions. It is not. The reason Qurbani is singled out is not the act itself, it is who performs it. The colonial-era stereotype of the backward, bloodthirsty Muslim still shapes the subconscious of a media landscape that finds it acceptable to apply scrutiny to Islamic practice that it would never apply to practices from other traditions. This is not to dismiss genuine concern about animal welfare. Those concerns are legitimate, and Islam takes them seriously. But it is to insist on intellectual consistency. If you are going to critique ritual slaughter, critique it across all traditions. If you only critique it when Muslims do it, your concern is not with the animal, your concern is with the Muslims. The Quran delivers the definitive statement, in Surah Al-Hajj, verse 37, on what Qurbani is actually about. Their meat will not reach Allah, nor will their blood, but what reaches Him is piety, taqwa, from you. Allah does not need the animal, He does not need the blood or the meat. What He receives, the only thing that genuinely travels from the act of Qurbani toward the divine, is taqwa, God consciousness, sincerity, the orientation of the heart toward its creator. If your Qurbani does not make you more conscious of Allah, it is just meat. If it does not humble your ego, it is just a ritual. If it does not open your hand to the poor, it is just a meal. But if it brings you closer to your Creator, if it reminds you that everything you own is a trust from Allah, if it inspires you to sacrifice your arrogance, your anger, your greed, your attachments, and your bad habits, then it is truly Qurbani. Then it is the act that Ibrahim and Ismail embodied, the complete, willing, joyful submission of the self to the will of the one who created it. This Eid, when you raise your hands to say, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, over the animal, do not only think of the animal. Think of, what is the thing you love most that stands between you and Allah? What is the habit, the attachment, the fear, the pride that you have refused to release? Identify it, name it, and in that moment, with that knife in your hand, slaughter it, give it up, let it die. Because what is with Allah is better and more lasting than what you are holding on to. May Allah accept our sacrifices, of animals, of egos, of bad habits, of time, of wealth, and of anger. May He grant us the capacity to follow in the footsteps of Ibrahim and Ismail, who submitted to His command without hesitation and without complaint. And may He make us among those who are called on the day of resurrection, you have fulfilled the vision. Ameen. And Allah knows best.